Welcome back to another episode of The Father's Advocate. I'm your host, The Father's Advocate, Attorney Ella Hughes. Okay, today we're going to talk about courtroom attire, behavior, and tips. But before we get started, you guessed it, here's our disclaimer. The information provided here should not be construed as legal advice, nor does any communication with the host or guest shall be construed as attorney-client relationship. Similarly, any information provided is not protected by attorney-client confidentiality. If you're in need of legal representation, you should contact an attorney in your area. Now let's jump into today's episode. So when I was preparing to do this episode, I did some research to see what other attorneys had to say about this topic. But interestingly enough, I not only found attorneys with an opinion, but also talk shows hosts, fashionistas, and I guess people with an opinion. And while the non-attorney's advice was not completely wrong, most of it was not very helpful. And what I found is that most of these people's opinion concerned courtroom attire for women and criminal cases. So what that tells me is that even when discussing clothes or what to wear to court, the discussions are discriminatory in comparison to men. I mean, I really didn't realize the level of disparate attention and resources that's really available to women than to men until just recently. Now, on that same note, I had a dad who I was able to get full custody of his two children. He told me that when he would go to the doctor's office or daycare center or any place that served children, the forms were difficult to fill out. Now, my client is a smart guy, so I didn't understand what he was talking about. Then he explained that all the forms were written as if mom was the custodial parent and dad was absent. Well, he told me that, I was like, wow, I really never thought about it. And when I think about it even now, it reminds me of a very similar time when certain forms, like usually government forms, were only available in English. But now you see these forms in languages like Spanish or Portuguese sometimes. I suspect it's because in this country, we have a large population of people that speak Spanish and other languages. I personally don't see any difference between the two. Forms concerning the care of children, in my opinion, should be gender neutral. Okay, let's deal with the easy stuff. When I used to do criminal defense work, I would see men and women come to court in regular everyday attire, but that attire was not appropriate for court. For instance, women would come to court in the shortest, tightest, and most revealing outfits they had in their closet. This is inappropriate because the court is not a club or a dating scene, and judges are not interested in getting your phone number. Or they would come to court dressed in jeans with holes or rips, Daisy Duke shorts, tank tops with nothing underneath, a wrinkled t-shirt or a headscarf, and I'm not talking about a hijab, and oh my God, flip-flops. For men, on the other hand, it was as if they had something to prove. Like, you're not going to make me wear something I don't want to wear, or I'm being myself. This is who I am. I'm not going to dress to impress someone. This attitude is the wrong thing to have. That is because you are in a judge's courtroom and that is his house. And there are certain protocols that must be followed. Otherwise, you are likely to regret it if you choose not to follow those protocols. For instance, if a defendant is charged with possession with marijuana or pigwig, which is possession with intent to distribute, but he comes to court with a t-shirt on that has a cannabis plant. Wearing a shirt like that has a lot of negative connotation, especially in court. Almost like you're not that bright and you don't have your priorities right. You don't want to have that type of image in court when your life is at stake. Or he might wear a t-shirt that says F it all or some other offensive language. Now, unless you want to get F, leave that t-shirt at home in your dresser drawer. Or let's just say there's a defendant who's charged with drug trafficking, and he comes to court with gold teeth, gold earrings, gold bracelet, chains around his neck, designer shoes, and eyewear. I can't stress enough how this is so not a smart move, because what that says is that all the money that you may have earned from your drug trafficking, you're now wearing it. So don't dress like that. Do all your flashing outside of court where it matters. The courtroom is not a fashion show nor a runway, and nobody is concerned about your fashion style. Now, another preferred outfit to come to court in, which I'm not kidding, are pajamas. Yes, that is a thing. Now, I know Old Navy and a lot of other stores they sell some cute PJs. But I don't care how cute, how fancy, or even if the pajamas are made out of Italian linen, pajamas are supposed to be worn at home and not in the courtroom. And in my opinion, nowhere else for that matter. And I do know there are some lounge outfits that can double between lounge and pajamas. But my motto is, if you in doubt, leave it out. Do not wear that to court. I've also seen men come to court with holy jeans as well. And more often than not, their jeans are sagging. This is another no-no. Please do not wear that. Now, the last example I have, I remember when I first started practicing law, there were several attorneys that recounted how they had to instruct their clients on what to wear. So there was this old attorney who was representing a woman in a criminal case. His client was a poor woman with limited resources, and she didn't have a lot of clothing options. Now, in preparation for trial, the attorney told her to come to court in a nice dress or an outfit, something that she would wear to court. You know what she wore to court? She came to court in a wedding dress. I swear I didn't make this up, and I'm not joking. And the explanation that she gave was that that was the nicest outfit she had in her closet, and she would wear it to church. This seems really, really silly, but it's really real. And that's why it is important that you have to understand what crosses the line of appropriate and inappropriate attire for court. Now, I can tell you a bunch of stories like this, but I don't want to bore you to death. Because courtroom attire is important, I will ask my client's family to provide clothing for my client ahead of time if we have trial or hearing. I will also school my clients on what to wear. Like, we will be in details, like you can wear this, you can't wear that. And at least on one occasion, I've actually had to purchase a shirt and pants for a client at a Goodwill because he didn't have a family. Now, to bring this message home, because I am certain there are a few of you who do not believe that courtroom attire is important, just look at the trial of Jeffrey Lamar Williams, or AKA Young Thug. He and his co-defendants are dressed in suits and tie every day they go to court. Now, I'm not familiar with Young Thug's music, except that he's a rapper, and I also know that he's on trial. But I'm certain he does not dress in suits and ties when he's performing. Now, I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. Either way, he understands that the proper attire for the courtroom is a suit and tie or something else that's a lot more subtle, and he is respecting that. So the reason why attire matters is that you want to be respectful to the court, not to bring attention to yourself unnecessarily, and you don't want to distract the court or the jury away from legal arguments, which could be important to whether or not you win your case or not. Now, what to wear and not to wear is only one part of courtroom readiness. Now, FYI, I just made up that term, but it does have a meaning, so stick with me. So for me, and depending on the allegations, I tell my clients, we have to change the image the other side has painted of you. And for me, that starts early on. So in the initial pleadings, like the complaint and the answer, stuff we talked about last week, the opposing side will make allegations about dads, and then they will make these allegations in mediations and subsequent hearings. In fact, each time the parties meet, more often than not, both sides are painting a certain picture of the other that they intend to tell the judge or the jury. I call this the psychology of courtroom demeanor. For example, mom claims that dad doesn't visit with his son because he doesn't want to, or she's not stopping him from visiting, or he can visit whenever he wants to, he just chooses not to. Okay. These are three very common statements I have heard moms say and use when they're alienating the children from the dads, which oftentimes these statements are kind of true because it is, but they're a plausible explanation. And if you know how to handle it, you can get the court to see it through your eyes as well, which may be helpful to you in the long run. Now, first, if mom argues to the court that dad has made no efforts to see his child, dad would say the opposite, right? Well, where's the proof? Aha! This is where changing the image begins. Now, when I say changing the image, I'm not saying create some false persona to impress the judge. No, sir, no, sir, no, sir. This needs to be sincere because the judge can see through BS. Now, every dad that I have represented to the conclusion of the case, they actually did just this, but they did it incorrectly. So most dads will come to me and they would tell me that I call mom all the time, or I've gone to the house, or I pick up my son and daughter and then mom tells me to bring my son and daughter back even in the middle of visitation. Or they've done this for so long, they have been rejected and they just simply say, forget it, I'm tired, I'm not going to do it anymore, and they stop. So we have to repair the image, because on the surface, if a dad becomes so frustrated with asking mom to visit that he stops contacting her altogether, then mom's statement is true. He's not calling. He's not doing anything. And even though she's lying, you don't have any proof you're doing anything otherwise, except that you're angry now because she wouldn't let you do it in the first place. Or there might be a dad who actually does contact mom, and he might do it consistently, but there is no proof. And mom's statement is true again. So what do we do? Alrighty. The first lesson in repairing the image is using text messages or email and telephone calls, but only if you can keep a record of every time you call. But when I say this, I'm not talking about a text message here, a phone call here, once or twice, 3 times a month. No. I am telling you regularly and consistent. I recommend to my clients to do this multiple times a week, every single week, until we see a change. Or we can prove to the court that my dad wants to have a relationship with his child, but mom has refused to respond. I also teach my clients how to respond to text messages from moms, which brings me to the second image repair. Now, when you're going through a custody battle, you have visitation issues, or you're trying to enforce an order, there's a lot of emotions. And the natural response to a nasty text message is to respond in the same fashion, right? No. This is just not smart. Because remember, the image that mom has painted of you is negative. You cannot give fuel to the fire. So don't respond negatively. Now, I'm not saying you have to tell her I love you or say, may Jesus be with you. No, I'm not saying do that. Just don't be negative. My motto is you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. So don't respond with vinegar. Now, my favorite client, you guys will meet him next week. He actually put every one of these tips to the test. And I tell you, it was like pulling teeth. He did not want to do it, but it proved him to be successful. So you'll get to hear from a dad who did these things himself, and not just me, a woman who happened to be an attorney, but someone that actually did it. And this stuff really does work. The third image of repair. Try to attend doctor's appointments. Get to know the teachers. Participate in the child's activity. Now, what if mom won't allow you? Or for that matter, she won't even tell you when the appointments or school functions even occurring. No problem. What I tell my clients to do is you ask mom, and you keep asking until you get a response. And what if she doesn't respond? You can at least show the judge what efforts you have done to make yourself be part of your child's life. Now, there's a caveat to this. You don't want to harass mom, because doing so will not help you. So texting and calling and emailing mom several times a day, don't do that. Fourth image repair. Mom argues that you don't provide for the child financially, and there's no child support order in place. Okay. First thing first, because there is no child support order in place, technically, there's nothing that requires you to pay anything to anyone for any period of time at all. However, you know you need to be doing something, right? Especially if there's no issue concerning paternity. And besides, there's an innocent child caught in the middle of 2 consenting adults' drama, and that child should not have to suffer because the parents can't get along. Now, given the scenario, you can ask mom, what does little Mikey need? Or Does little Ella needs diapers or formulas? Or you can even say, hey, I can pick up some clothes or some outfits or some formulas for her, and I can drop them off at your house. Now, how do we communicate with mom? You guessed it, through text messages or email, because you don't want there to be a scenario where you have said you did this stuff and it's your words against hers and you have no proof. And if there is a belief that the system is stacked against dads, you're going to need your evidence. Now, is this fair? No, it's not. Do you have to jump through hoops? Yes, you do. Now, the fifth image repair. I hate, and I mean I cannot stand it, when dads come to my office with a bunch of receipts saying this is proof of the money he spent on his child. No, 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 sirree, Bobby. Put those things in a spreadsheet or photocopy the receipts and write an explanation for the stuff that you have purchased and have it in a chronological order by dates. No one has time, nor do anyone have the desire to go to hundreds, sometimes thousands of wrinkled, indecipherable receipts. And generally, if you were to take a bunch of receipts to an attorney's office and ask them to go through it and organize it, you will be billed for the attorney's time or his staff's time to organize those receipts. And if the information is not clear, the attorney will have to call you and you will have to be billed for that as well. So unless you have a lot of money that you are okay spending, then I would suggest that you organize everything first, because the time that the attorney is using to organize your stuff, they could be using that to get ready for your case, and the monies that you'll have to pay for that could be used towards something more important. And aside from everything else, the very best person that can do this task is you, because after all, you were the ones to make those purchases, and you know better than anyone what those items were and when the dates were. Now, these are just a few image repair tips I utilize in my office with my clients. And there are other image repair tips that I use as well. It just kind of depends on the case. Sometimes I will tweak it a little bit. Sometimes I won't use it at all. Or sometimes I'll use other tactics or tips that help my client. Again, it just depends on what's happening in my case, the parties involved, and other circumstances. Now, because of that, this is again why I always suggest that you should retain an attorney, and if you cannot, at least do a consultation. Okay, let's get back to the original scenario where mom says dad doesn't see his child because he doesn't want to, and he doesn't provide financial support for his son or daughter. Because you have began the process of repairing your image and you now have evidence, you are in a better position than you were before. So while it may be true that you don't visit with little Johnny, or you haven't provided financial support for little Sarah, it's not because you haven't asked or you haven't tried. No, 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 no. It is because mom will not allow you. And on top of everything else, you now have black and white evidence that cannot be refuted, as opposed to just having circumstantial evidence. I really, really hope you can see the difference. And let me tell you, it really does make a difference when it comes to court. Now, does it guarantee a certain outcome? No, it doesn't. But it does put you in a better position than it would have if you didn't have it. For example, let's just say mom says dad is not doing anything. He's not visiting. He's not doing anything. However, dad has come to court and he presents to the judge 70 or so text messages where he has asked mom every single week, if I can visit with my son, can I FaceTime my daughter? Can I come to the doctor's appointment? When is the next game? Who is the child's teacher? I want to be part of the PTA meeting. Or if the children are really small, do the child need some diapers or formula? I can buy that. Tell me what it is. Look, you don't have to tell me how much it is. I'm just going to send you money. I just want to make sure that the child's okay. Do you see how that image is changing and how that puts you in a better light than it was if all you had was mom telling the court you are doing nothing and you don't have any proof of it? See, at first, mom said dad was essentially a deadbeat. But what she did, she never told the judge what she did, which was contributed to you as a dad not being able to visit with your child or, in some cases, provide for your child. Now, the new image that dad has made substantial efforts to establish a relationship with his son or daughter, and mom has refused that, it also says that mom is a liar. And in my experience, judges have been very, very, very upset with moms who have alienated dads from their children when there was no reasonable justification for doing so. This is why I continuously say that the courts don't necessarily favor mom. It is that dads don't know how to exercise their rights. And it is because of that I have been successful in getting my clients not only custody, joint custody, or visitation, and in some cases, all of that, and mom having to pay child support. Okay, another very, very important tip. This is tell your lawyer everything. That is the good, the bad, the ugly, and the very ugly that concerns your case. This can include whether or not you got a criminal record, employment, whether you're working a job, you're about to start a new job, whatever it is. If there's infidelity, whether or not you are engaged in some current illegal activity. And if you are, I suggest you get the heck out of it right now. If there's some new employment ventures that you're about to start, you're about to open up a business, your education desires, like you're getting ready to go back to school, you're about to graduate, stuff that may have happened in the past that may creep up, you want to tell your attorney that. If you have other children or child support orders, that's very important when you're dealing with custody cases. If you're engaged or about to become engaged, if you have family and community support, the court as well as your attorney will need to know who those persons are, even if your lifestyle has changed. So I had a case where a husband and wife were going through a divorce and they had a child. One of the parties was now involved in a same-sex relationship, and the other party didn't want the child around the parties or the parents' partner. So as you can see, all these things are very helpful, even if you don't think they are. Plus, the last thing attorney ever wants is to be caught off guard, especially in the middle of a hearing or trial. Okay, let's finally talk about courtroom attire. I know we went through a whole lot, but it was very important to get to this point. First rule of thumb, wear something plain, clean, iron, and will not cause a distraction of any kind or will cause for conversation or discussion about your attire. For example, if all you have are jeans, wear the nicest pair that you have. And hopefully they're not form-fitting and they don't have holes or rips or writings or other designs. Jeans should not be sagging. There are no exceptions to this. You can wear a sweatshirt, but a better option would be to wear a sweater or button-down shirt or polo-style shirt. Stay away from shirts with words or messages or designs. Do not, under any circumstances, wear flip-flops or slippers to court. Unless your headdress is for religious purposes, do not wear hats or caps to court. If there is an allegation that you have an abundance amount of money, but you are not providing for the child, do not wear your flashy Versace eyewear, timepiece, designer shoes, or shiny suit to court. As I've said before, court is not a fashion show. No one cares that you have great taste in clothes. And if nothing else, always remember your purpose. That is to be reunited with your child. Okay, a few more tips. Don't be late for court. If you're representing yourself, which I don't recommend, be prepared and be more prepared. That is, have all of your evidence ready, marked, and labeled. And again, if you are representing yourself, be confident, not arrogant. There is a difference. Don't argue with the judge and do not talk over the judge, even if you think the judge is wrong. That is a no-no. And be professional and courteous. And that goes without saying, even to mom and mom's family. Last thing, because of COVID, some courts have implemented Zoom or video conferencing courtroom sessions. And oh my God, I have seen some stuff. Whew, I can tell you. First thing, although court is done via video, it is still court, and it comes with the same level of seriousness, even though you might be attending from your home. And because it is the same, it requires you to conduct yourself as if you were in court in person. So this means that you cannot be in bed under the cover and you're just waiting for the judge to call your name. This is an absolute no with a capital N. And trust and believe, I have seen this more than once. So I am not making that up. Another thing, you cannot eat during court. Just imagine if you were in court in person and you want to eat a bowl of cereal. You wouldn't even think to do that. It's no difference when you're having court via Zoom. So if you're hungry, eat before court starts or eat after court ends. Second thing, or third thing, you should not be driving or walking during court. It becomes distractive to those that are in attendance. You cannot hold multiple conversations with individuals in the background. It also creates distraction for those in attendance. Another tip, dress as if you're going to court in person, using the information we discussed earlier. I cannot tell you how many times a judge has had to admonish parties for improper attire. Another tip, cease all activities during court. So if you have housework to do it after court. Again, by doing stuff other than sitting and waiting for your name to be called, it will cause distraction and the court will admonish you. Make sure that you have proper internet connection and you know how to connect so that you can attend without issue. And without question, make sure you keep your camera on and mute yourself out until you are called upon. Okay, these are just a few tips of the trade that I use in my office with my dads, and I hope they are helpful to you. If you don't remember these tips, don't worry, because they will be available on our website, which is www.thefathersadvocate.com. Well, this brings us to the end of another episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. We're encouraged, inspired, and you learned something new and helpful. As always, you're not in this alone. Don't stop fighting. Your children do need you. Please join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel next Monday. Until then, this is your Father's Rights Advocate, Attorney Hughes.